Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Real Talk NYC Real Estate Podcast with John and Jonathan. And today we are talking about what?
Today we're going to talk about central AC.
Central AC. Great. I love central AC.
I'm going to kick it off with a question for you,
Oh,
John.
no. Why did I get this one? Okay.
What is central AC?
In usual terms or in New York City terms? Because the reason I say that is central AC, what I would say is that central air conditioning in an apartment. Okay. In a home, you have an actual condenser that sits outside the home, and then it's filtered in and ducted throughout the entire home to push the air into each of the rooms. In a Manhattan apartment, the answer to that would be similar.
It's a gray area.
That there is a gray area only because you have real central air conditioning that has a condenser that has to be sit outside of the apartment. And then there is an air handler in the apartment, depending on how big the apartment is, more than one air handler. And that is then the ducting gets piped through the apartment. But there is also in some buildings a central air conditioning system. So heating and air conditioning are combined. And then so some brokers will say, yes, there is central air conditioning. And so we have to go a little bit further and say, well, we look for the ducting right away, but then usually there are what are called PTAC units. Yes, there is central air conditioning can be, in more modern buildings, can be defined as building controlled, but really central air conditioning should be individually controlled in the apartment.
So, well, let's just back up. Let's say, okay, the different types of air conditioning within the city, because there are a number of different types. So window units being the least desirable. There are still many pre-war buildings, if the facade is landmarked, where you can't cut through the wall or anything, you can't change things, where window units are still mandatory. You can't, it's your only option. So there's window units, then you go to the PTACs, like you mentioned, which is a combination heat and air conditioning unit that's cut through the wall. There's a boiler, typically a central boiler from the building that circulates hot water through that PTAC, and the PTAC unit itself controls what's getting kicked out, whether you have the fan on low, medium, or high. What's the matter?
I think it's really good the way you're describing it, but I was going to do something really ridiculous, which was.
Well, I don't blame you.
PTAC.
PTAC.
Through wall. Okay, got it.
Window AC. So the PTAC units typically are an all-in-one unit that's vented underneath the windows, and the heat comes from the building, from a central boiler, but they're individual condensers, individual air conditioning units. So the building controls, once they turn on that heat, the air conditioner, you can't turn it on. Correct. Because it's fighting against the condenser is fighting against the heat, which will always win. And it's really bad for the unit to turn on the air conditioner while the heating system is on. Then you have just through the wall AC, which is like a window AC punched through the wall. Then you go to like an HVAC system, which a lot of the new developments are, where it's almost like an all-in-one unit that's in the wall, basically, or in a closet. It kicks out the air right there, and there's no duct work. Then you go to central system, which is like you mentioned, with the duct work everywhere, and there's a condenser somewhere. The main question that comes about is whether somebody has complete control over the temperature of their apartment. Absolutely. Or whether the building controls it. And really the answer to that question is there a central boiler in the building or not? Because if it's a separate system for each individual unit, which comes with its own challenges, because then you're responsible for it. So there's, if something breaks or something, it's on you to fix it. And heat obviously is more important than AC, I would argue. You can always open your window if it's too warm in an apartment, which happens all the time. But that's typically the more important of the two, right? But if you're a fully condensed unit all on your own, then it's also all your responsibility. So I'm a fan of the PTACs, but to each their own. With the central system, you lose ceiling height and such for all the duct work, et cetera. So there's benefits and negatives, and it depends, frankly. A lot of times the layout of the apartment dictates what's going to be the most beneficial solution for you.
Sure. So listen, thank you for being a great part of Real Talk NYC Real Estate Podcast with John and Jonathan. Be healthy, safe, and most of all, remain in gratitude.
Thanks for watching or listening to the Real Talk NYC Real Estate Podcast. If you want to find us online or sign up to get our monthly and quarterly market stats, come on over to our website, gastaskaconlantine.com, or you can find us on all social media with the handle @gastaskaconlantine. If this show was helpful, entertaining, or informative, consider telling friends and family or leaving us a review on Apple Podcasts. Thanks for tuning in. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss our next episode, and we'll see you next time.